We have lighting. Today we're talking about personality. What is personality? The combination of characteristics or qualities that form an individual's distinctive character, or a famous person, especially in entertainment or sports. I do not know what accent this is. Combination of characteristics. Define characteristics. Typical of a particular person, place, or thing. Isn't that a noun? A feature, or that's as an adjective, is a noun, a feature or quality belonging typically to a person, place, or thing, and serving to identify it. What identifies me? I don't know. Is me in my natural state. What is my personality? How I speak? For some reason, whenever you say you're about to say something, you just don't know what you're going to say. I don't know what my personality is now that I'm doing this video. You know, I could list off adjectives. Brilliant, smart, iconic, a true national treasure. I am smart, I am artistic, I am silly. Let me sell myself. Hold on a second. Amigas, cheetahs, friends for life. Amigas, cheetahs, living the dream. Do I look professional now? I have on a blazer and my glasses. Think I'm stunting on you hoes now. Selling myself. Right. I am smart, artistic, silly, wise, and talkative. Is that it? I do not want the ring light to block my eyes. You know, we always think about who we are as people. Who are we, and how does that define who we are? Is it not saying the same statement? I think it is. Who am I? Who are you? Who are we? Who could we ever be? I once heard a person say, don't focus on who you are, but focus on what you do. So, is it the things that I do that make up who I am? What I do is synonymous with who I am? Well, what do I do? Cheetah girls, here we go, gonna rock the world. Well, let's see, I go to bed at 5 a.m. and then I wake up at 2 p.m. During those span of hours, I spend a good chunk of my time on the YouTube, on the TikTok, and finding friends who would unapologetically waste their time talking to me. Hence why we said talkative. What is a characteristic or quality? It's really, as the definition said, things about you that you do that pertain to you particularly. It doesn't state that only you are capable to possess this particular thing of yourself, but that it is particular to you. Is personality synonymous with identity? Questions, just so many questions. I need answers. Identity. The day I lost my identity. The fact of being who or what a person is. What does Google say about identity? Can I spell? Identity versus personality. Identity is something that you give yourself. It has to do with what you stand for, morals, values, etc. Personality is the way in which you portray would live in your identity. Ooh. We got morals and values, and we got the way in which we portray. In the freedom of my own self-isolation, I tend to indulge in a lot of silly behavior. I believe that everybody back home is a goner. What's interesting about personality is that I feel like a good chunk of people who know me don't actually understand the depth of my own personality. But I make this statement with the full awareness that I think everybody feels that way. Personality traits. Let me think about some other things. The more I think about it, the more I worry about the incomplete nature of my being. But also, is there such thing as completeness for a person? My personality traits include me being an indecisive person, as well as an individual who seems to be somewhat incapable of finishing projects that I start. This includes books, movies, TV shows, and even some projects. My ideal sense of being is something that, in most times, seems to be unrealistic. One time I was in an art trip, and a fellow art friend of mine was watching me draw, and they could see my frustration in my inability to draw a particular place. And they said to me, your abilities will never be able to match your imagination. I feel like there is some weight to that quote, and yet some problematic issues with it. In one sense, I think when you're beginning, yes, there is a possibility that your abilities to create might be halted by your skill set, but your imagination is much wider and bigger and grander than that. But currently, in your state of beginnings, you will not be able to match that. But I do think there is a threshold in which you get past that, and you are no longer only incapable of reaching the limits of your imagination, meaning that with enough practice and dedication, you can, abilities-wise, meet your imagination, if not potentially surpass what you imagine. But when it comes to crafting ourselves as people, we all look at ourselves as a state of reaching perfection, reaching enlightenment, and fulfillment. How does any of this tie into personality, though? Well, we, in a sense, pick our personality traits to a certain extent. There are some ways of being that we are taught to be, but once we enter the real world, we are taught different notions and language and how to behave, and that can affect our personality. Choosing how I want to be as an adult is a quite difficult way of existing for me, because up to this point I've always accepted anything that comes out of me as the perfection that is my being, my uniqueness. But there are also problematic ways of my personality, such as my indecisiveness and my inability to get things done. These are things that plague me in the dead of night, and I wonder, can I ever overcome such a thing? But to even be capable of thinking of being different and better, I have to imagine that this is possible. If we're using the same logic as a friend of mine that said my abilities will never match my imagination, in a particular way, that can stop me from actually reaching a better way of living. How could I ever hope to improve my being, of being more task-oriented in finishing what I start, if I believe I will never have the ability to reach that sort of golden moment? So many questions. Actually, there's just a lot of thoughts in circles. So many circles. Quite literally and figuratively. And what about habits? How do habits fit into our personality? Does our personality affect our habits, or do our habits reflect our personality? If we go back to one of the earlier things I mentioned about what you do representing who you are, do my habits reflect my personality and who I am as a person, meaning my identity? If I'm a messy person, is this a personality trait that I am messy, and since I believe I'm messy, I am therefore messy? Or do I adopt the messiness because I see that I am a mess? I'm not exactly sure what it is that I was looking for in this video, or if I was actually looking for anything to begin with. I think I really wanted to expose particular parts of my being, but I'm not exactly quite sure how to do that. Do the things that we enjoy actually point out our personality traits? My grandmother likes sweets. I have a lot of friends who like sweets, but there are people I know who like sweets as desserts and not candy, and people who like candy and don't like desserts. Is that a personality trait? Would they not be themselves unless they ate a sweet? Now we're thinking about something very, very interesting. Although we've been thinking about a lot of very interesting things. I'm thinking about how all of us carry particular habits that actually do us no type of good. Usually when this is said, people tend to think about addiction, whether it's to drugs, alcohol, food, or television. And the list goes on and on and on. But we think of these things as being part of our identity, part of our personalities, as if we were to stop doing such a thing, we could never continue to be ourselves. Which makes me wonder about how aware are all of us about the malleability of our personality. What I'm really trying to get at is how delusional we can tend to be if we think that we could never truly be ourselves unless we continue to do a specific thing. To give an example, the screenwriter Aaron Sorkin, he is responsible for The West Wing, American President, The Social Network, and many other films. He's one of my favorite talkie screenwriters. And for a long time, he was hooked on cocaine. And he talks about his issues with overcoming it and how he worried that he wouldn't be able to write the same, that he wouldn't be able to really produce the same type of work that he was doing. The association that the drug made him a better writer. The drug was affecting his view on his identity. The drug was used as a placeholder for his skill and ability. It makes me wonder, was being a coke user part of his identity? Was it a personality trait, or was it just a piece of his identity? Maybe it's just it's an identity factor. We talked about morals and beliefs. He believed that as long as he continued to do drugs, that he would in fact be a great screenwriter. And it took a lot of time and healing for him to understand that's not true. I want to be very clear that I am in no way here to give anybody any answers, but only to aimlessly ramble about my seemingly confusion about what personality and identity is. I have full intentions of this video being lighthearted and stupid. What do I mean? I mean this. The fuck is that? I feel like I can be weird and still have something to say. I think that's all I really have for today. And I'll check you in the next one. Check out my podcast if you're totally down for scattered ramblings of the 23-year-old. Peace up, A-Town. Dun 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 dun. Usher, usher, usher. In the club with homies, ba da ba da 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 da. Let me go heavy. Da 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 da. You ready to